Hello there, I'm Lucas, and today we want to talk about these two very affordable 50mm vintage lenses. So when I say affordable, I really mean affordable. Each of these lenses is around 30 to 50 bucks depending on where you buy it. Of course, they can be cheaper or more expensive. However, price is a really good thing for these because the quality is very comparing, maybe even better than the Canon 50mm f1.8, also called the Nifty 50. So let's take a closer look at this one at first. This is an Olympus OM 50mm f1.8 lens, of course for the Olympus OM system, so with a very cheap adapter for around 5 bucks on eBay. You can adapt it to a Canon camera or any other mirrorless cameras that are usually used for filming. I think there's no way to get it on a Nikon, but maybe you can search it online. So this is the Pentax K 50mm f1.7 lens, of course for the Pentax K system, so you can of course bring it on a Pentax K camera these days. But of course there's also, like this one has a very cheap adapter for the Canon EF system, which fits like a glove. And of course also any other camera system you might want to adapt it to. I think, again, except Nikon. So the most obvious difference between these two lenses is this one has an f1.7 aperture and this one has a f1.8 aperture. However, in reality, in nature, this is not really a big difference. However, just want to mention this but this is not a reason to get this one instead of this one. And to be honest, except for this and the position of the aperturing, these lenses have so much in common, it's a bit creepy. Think about it. So the size of both is nearly identical. Front diameter of both at 49mm. Close focus distance on both is 45 centimeters. The throw on both lenses to focus from macro to infinity is around 180 degrees. Oh hey, I found a difference! On the Pentax, you have, just like on the Nikon, the infinity focus on the far left of the focus ring and the macro on the far right. So to pull from macro to infinity, we need to pull it 180 degrees counterclockwise. So on the Olympus, of course, it's the opposite, like the most people consider normally be on the lens. So on the far right, there's the infinity focus. On the far left, there's the close focus distance. So when we tilt it, rotate it around 180 degrees clockwise, we get from macro to infinity. Maybe we find some more differences when we look at some images and videos. So let's hop in.
So, first thing we want to do is check the sharpness of both lenses. I have these photographed ISO charts photographed with my Canon camera. It's not the perfect ISO chart, I printed it myself, it's not really good, but you will get the idea from this. So, what you see right now is the Olympus at 1.8. And as you can see, it's not perfect wide open. We have a bit in the edges, we are not really sharp. I assure you this is normal, the Nifty 50 won't look better here. And we have some sort of chromatic aberrations around the corners, even in the center. So when we take a look at the Pentax is somewhat much better. So there's a possibility that this is slightly out of focus, because I'm not perfect. However, the Pentax performs better here right away. Let's take a look at the edges, and it's also much better here in the edges. You see the Olympus here, and the Pentax is much better in the edges. And yeah, I think this is a pretty normal behavior wide open. The Pentax is really great here. So let's take a look at f2.8 on both lenses. So what we see now is the Olympus, which massively improved with stopping it down by one stop. Actually, it does even look better to me than the Pentax, which we see here. Let's have a look at the edges of the frame. So here, the Pentax is actually better. So it has a bit of this greenish tint, however, it's sharper than the Olympus. But in the center, I like the Olympus actually much more. And last but not least, we want to take a look at f4. So at f4, both lenses perform really great. I think these aberrations here from the Olympus is now because I didn't focus it properly. I don't have scientific and perfect conditions here in my flat, so you have to excuse that. However, on the edges, both look much better now. The Olympus is still a bit soft on the edges. This doesn't have to be bad. However, the Pentax is much better here. So when we just look on this regarding the sharpness, the Olympus is... So what's pretty obvious now is that both lenses really create a beautiful bokeh in the autofocus area. and the light circles from both lenses really look fantastic. It's pretty nice. However, due to the general shape of the aperture, which has only 6 blades, we get, of course, light circles shaped like a hexagon when we step down. Talking about the bokeh, I tried to fetch some shots so you can get an impression on how the bokeh on both lenses performs. In my opinion, it's a nice bokeh. It's not too distracting, but also not too boring. All these shots were captured between wide open and f2.8, so you get a good impression on what this lens is capable of doing for your footage.
Actually, there's also another difference between these two lenses, and an ability that the Pentax has, which the Olympus OM has not, is to stop down by half stops. So the Olympus OM can only stop down full stops. The Pentax has the ability to stop down half stops. However, first half stop, in my opinion, is not even usable, because from the shape of the aperture you get a really weird bokeh. Just to keep this in mind, this is an ability the Pentax has and the Olympus not. Of course, needless to say, as these both are vintage lenses, the focus ring on both is butter smooth. So in this regard, they are much more superior to other autofocus lenses regarding video and filmmaking. So maybe you don't have a 50mm lens, or maybe you want to step up from your Canon Nifty 50, which is really just inferior in its aerodynamics. I'd really recommend to check these two lenses out, because they are really affordable and make a really stunning quality. If you maybe want it a bit faster, you can go with both lenses and f1.4, of course at a higher price point. However, these lenses are still just as good as these ones. So I hope you liked this little comparison between these two vintage lenses. If you like content of this type, please let me know. Up until then, see you next time. Bye.